Get some! Welcome to the Young Turks, Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. And down goes. All right, hold on. We're gonna get to that story in a second, okay? And kick it to me when we get there,
fine.
okay? But of course, giant news, not just in the House, but also with Trump's hearings. Trump's in a world of trouble. This is no longer like MSNBC stuff. He's gonna lose all his money. So it's not political trouble; it's financial trouble.
He is his own worst enemy, man. Like the guy just doesn't know how to shut up.
I've said that a million times.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It really is. So we're gonna get to that, but I think we should start with our big breaking news story. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You ready? You want me to start it?
Go.
Down goes Kevin McCarthy. Down goes Kevin McCarthy. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Kind of.
Did we though? Did we?
We didn't really get him. Matt Gaetz kind of got him. Let's tell you all about it.
Well, why don't we start with this?
On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has been ousted by members of his own party. This followed the decision by Republican Representative Matt Gaetz to file a motion to remove McCarthy from the speakership. Now, the ability to move the speaker used to be far more difficult back in the day. You would need the majority of House members to vote on whether they should proceed with a vote to remove the speaker. But in this case, all it took was one member of Congress to file a motion to remove McCarthy. In this case, it was Matt Gaetz, and that was a concession that the House Freedom Caucus, the more far right portion of the Republican Party, had received from McCarthy in favor of essentially voting in favor of the debt ceiling bill several months ago. Now, the final vote was 216 to 2010. I'm sorry, to 210. So 216 to 210, and it does strip McCarthy of his speakership role. And it's been reported that 8 House Republicans voted to oust him. So there you have it. Now, if you're wondering, well, what does this mean? Is there a speaker who's in charge now? Well, we're gonna get to that in a moment, but I do think it's important to also name names of the Republicans who voted to oust him, include Ken Buck, Andy Biggs, Tim Burchett, and also Eli Crane, Bob Good, Nancy Mace, and Matt Rosendale. Now, Republican Congressman from North Carolina, Patrick McHenry, gavelled the House into recess. And honestly, he seemed pretty upset about it. Let's watch the video and then I'll explain why.
Pursuant to Clause 8B3 of Rule 1, I'll now act as Speaker pro tem. The chair will inform the members of the House the following. The office of the Speaker was rendered vacant pursuant to the adoption of House Resolution 757. In the opinion of the chair, prior to proceeding to the election of a speaker, it would be prudent to first recess for the relative caucus and conferences to meet and discuss the path forward. Accordingly, pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess subject to the call of the chair.
He seemed pretty salty when he was banging that gavel. And I think the reason why is because he did not want to oust McCarthy. He was not one of the Republicans who voted in favor of it. And now that McCarthy has been voted out, McHenry will serve as the Speaker pro tem until a new speaker is decided on. Now, a few names have been floating around. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a little bit surprised Ken Buck's on that list. He's trying to get a job on CNN, trying to seem reasonable these days. So I don't know what happened. It's a topsy-turvy world. Nancy Mace is on the list. Nancy Mace is supposed to be one of the moderates in the Republican Party, which, by the way, this is a fun little super side story. But when I was just in DC a couple of days ago, I ran into Nancy Mace at the airport. And she said, Young Turks, right? And I said, yeah. She said, you guys crap all over me, but it's fun. Okay, and I agree, it's fun. This is also fun. I don't know why she partook in this fun, okay, but she did. Now, the most important thing for me is what can we get out of it, right? So, like, people think like, okay, well, McCarthy's gone now because this seat is vacant, he lost it, it's over. It's not over. You think it's over? They need a speaker at some point. So yes, they can replace him with someone else, which we're gonna get to, or they could just go back to McCarthy. And are they gonna get these guys to bend? Maybe they will, maybe they'll offer them a couple of goodies and it'll be, it'll do the job. Or he might need Democratic votes. If he needs Democratic votes, then I have a plan. We'll talk about that plan in a minute.
Well, it's fascinating that you mentioned that because Democrats were united in not helping McCarthy out. But first I want to answer your question about Nancy Mace. So Nancy Mace spoke to reporters following the vote, and she said that she felt compelled to vote against Kevin McCarthy because he has not kept his promises. So that is her retaliation for promises that have not been kept.
Interesting, so yes. She kind of maced them.
She maced him, she definitely maced him. And if she does enjoy watching the show, especially as we bash her, rightfully so, for her bad behavior, she's gonna love this show even more. Keep watching, we're gonna keep doing it.
All right.
And then we give her credit when credit's due.
That's what we do,
right.
That's what we do, it's not personal.
Exactly.
Okay, so look, now the Democrats are saying, well, if he wants our votes, so the first set of feelers have gone out, right? And I saw a list of demands and they sucked. They were like, hey, we want more earmarks. That's pork barrel projects in their districts. Okay, and they said, we want our committee members to have more power. Oh, so this is all about you. Like, no, I'm not interested in any of that. That's totally useless to the American people. You can say, oh no, but my constituents are gonna be helped by the new post office or whatever. Okay, congrats, okay, but that has nothing to do with the rest of us. So, what we really need is at least one progressive priority. And I talked to Representative Ro Khanna about this when I was in DC. We had an interview and he said, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We should ask for a couple of progressive priorities. And by the way, they're not just progressive, they're Democratic priorities. By the way, they're not just Democratic priorities, they're American priorities. You know the one I'm gonna say, paid family leave, polls at 84%, 74% of Republicans want it. All we want is a vote. They'll think we're gonna lose the vote anyway, but we can win the vote, right? Asking for a vote on that is the bare minimum. Will the Democrats do the bare minimum? No way. My guess is that they will go hoard more power for themselves and not ask for a single concession on a single bill. But that doesn't mean we should give up hope. In fact, I believe in Operation Hope, which we've launched here, where you guys can go to tyt.com and figure out how to pressure the Democrats to actually ask for something. So then we can figure out how to pressure the Republicans to actually pass the piece of legislation. But this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity. They might need our votes. Otherwise, they would never need our votes and we can't get anything done in these 2 years.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on a kind of a lengthy spiel, just let me get through it and then you can comment. So Democrats did consider helping McCarthy out in return for some concessions. I agree with you that the concessions that they were considering were weak sauce to say the least, but that is what I personally have come to expect from the Democratic Party. Over the weekend, I got into a rather drunken debate on a girls' trip with women that I had met for the first time, who were, the typical people who like to provide cover for weak sauce Democrats. And I kept repeating over and over again, the left has no imagination. The left has no imagination. And it's because it's true, right? Like you have Republicans who, for better or worse, shoot for the sky when it comes to their demands. A lot of them are nonsensical, but they try anyway. You don't see that with Democrats. But in the end, Democrats were united in not supporting Kevin McCarthy or even reaching out to him for concessions because of the fact that over the weekend, he went on network news and he blamed Democrats for getting us super close to a government shutdown. So he wanted to put the blame on the Democratic Party when we all know that's not what actually happened. When we all know that it was the House Freedom Caucus, the more conservative Republicans in the House caucus who were basically wanting to force a government shutdown. That is what they're mad at Kevin McCarthy because of the fact that we are not experiencing a government shutdown today. Okay, so that's really the situation here. But on top of that, they were concerned about what this would appear or how this would appear to their constituents, considering the fact that McCarthy is in fact a Trump loyalist who has provided cover for Trump's behavior, which incited the chaos and the rioting on January 6th. So look, I think that if Democrats were able to shoot for the stars and if they were able to get a concession that their constituents would find favorable, maybe they could spin this as a win if they helped McCarthy out. But A, they have to think of the concession, they have to think of something good. B, they have to fight for that concession. I don't ever see that happening. And C, they have to do a decent job marketing that they helped McCarthy out in return for that concession. That's a lot of work for Democrats, something that they're either incredibly rusty at or have never even tried, depending on which member we're talking about.
Yeah, if you're new to progressive politics and then you'll be used to mainstream media telling you there's nothing the Democrats could ever do, right? So, and then you always have to accept surrender and you always have to accept nothing. And you have to say, oh, but it's what the other guys are worse. Look, this thing that I'm calling Operation Hope, where we actually try to work together on TYT.com and try to force pressure from the outside to get something done. The core of it is get caught trying. It's not that hard to just try something, anything. And Democrats are forever telling us, no, we can't even try. No, don't try to beat Biden. No, just let him lose to Trump. He's down 13 points from where he was when he beat him. It's okay, just lose. Don't try. You get a concession from McCarthy, don't try. Just give me a little bit more power, good enough, don't try. Try to pass paid family leave, higher minimum wage, don't try. I'm sick of it. We're all sick of it. And it's not just progressives, all Democratic voters are sick of it. Stop being brainwashed by mainstream media telling you not to try. Get caught trying, okay? So this is a perfect opportunity. Everybody's like, oh my God, look at the Republicans, they're such a mess. Okay, and then what? Okay, so what? So they're like, oh, don't vote with the Republicans to put a Republican in the speakership. Well, what are we gonna get, a Democrat? I mean, I would try it, by the way. I'd try that too. I'd go to the Freedom Caucus. It's a very low probability event, but I say, what do you guys want most? You want votes on single issue bills? Okay, make a Democrat the Speaker of the House, and I'll get you votes on single issues. So what? We can do that compromise, right? That's the thing you want most. Let's do it. Now, it's not gonna work, but it would be amazing to try, and it's got a 10% chance to work. Oh, they never even think about it, right? Okay, then go to the more realistic opportunity. Okay, you guys, either you're gonna make concessions to the right wing, or you're gonna make concessions to us. Make concessions to us, right? But there, guys, you will see with your own eyes if you're new to this. Hakeem Jeffries will try nothing except to accrue a little bit more power for himself and Democratic leaders. And at the end of the day, they'll have another Republican just like either McCarthy or just like McCarthy come back in by making more ridiculous concessions to the right. They'll do the more drama about the shutdown, and you guys will get absolutely nothing out of it.
So to your point, I'm gonna read an excerpt from the Times, and they're reporting on why Democrats decided to do what they did. Democrats had wrestled with whether to help McCarthy survive or at least to stay out of the effort to oust him. But in a closed door meeting on Tuesday morning, Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, the minority leader, instructed fellow Democrats not to do so, citing Republicans' unwillingness to break from MAGA extremism. But let me also be clear. I mean, whoever they choose to replace McCarthy, I believe is likely to be even more extreme than McCarthy was in terms of providing cover for MAGA extremism within the Republican Party.
Yeah, there is no Republican that's gonna come out and go, oh no, you guys were right, Trump's a bad guy. I mean, please don't tell me that's what you're waiting for. Not gonna happen, okay? It's either gonna be just as slavish devotion as McCarthy has, and licking Trump's right boot, or it's gonna be another guy who's even worse, licking Trump's left boot. It doesn't matter. They're not gonna turn on a guy who's got a 40-point lead in the Republican primaries. Just please understand politics, right?
And McCarthy just did he thought that he could straddle, right? Because there are so-called moderate Republicans in the House who do not like the House Freedom Caucus because they're running for re-election in swing districts, in purple districts. And so the extremism doesn't bode well for their chances at getting re-elected. So McCarthy had to try to appeal to them while also trying to appeal to the far right wing of the Republican Party. And the problem with that is you can't really straddle the two. And so he tried to push back as much as he could when it came to the government funding bill. But then remember, he also conceded on their demands to open an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden without a shred of evidence of Biden engaging in any wrongdoing or criminality.
Yeah, I want to be super clear. There are no good guys here.
Right.
You make the best of a bad situation. First of all of Washington is toxic, right? So then Kevin McCarthy not only devoted to Trump, impeaching Biden for no reason because the right wing put pressure on him. And then it was never good enough for the right wing anyway. For the right wing, they want to defund the entire Department of Justice, have complete lawlessness, have the right wing Gestapo run the whole place, right? And if you don't give them the Gestapo, they're not going to say yes, right? So sometimes I get the sense from the establishment that they think like, oh, there are cooler heads here and moderate Republicans will prevail. But who are the moderate Republicans? Even if you found the most moderate Republican there is in the House, it's still a person who's a corporatist, who believes that you should give everything to their donors, right? I mean, so it's not like there are any good guys at all, right? So they've never proposed anything that helps the American people. The only thing they ever propose is build a wall, we would keep the Mexicans out, and tax us for the rich, tax us for the rich. So that's it, there is no good options. The only question is, what can we get in return for somehow keeping the government going? And so just look out for our voters in this mess instead of going ha ha to the Republicans, which doesn't really do you any good. You're never gonna get anyone good to be their leader. So stop waiting or dreaming for that. It's not gonna happen.
Olivia Beavers on X, formerly known as Twitter, says that there is a group of House Republicans huddled and praying on the House floor. Representative Ann Wagner appears to be crying. So Republicans are having a tough go at things in the House. But to your point, Cenk, in regard to the most moderate Republicans in the House, I mean, Nancy Mace is considered a moderate Republican and is in fact running for re-election in a purple district, which is part of the reason why, after the reversal of Roe became a reality in America, she went on a press tour speaking out against the decimation of reproductive rights in America. Now, does she genuinely care about reproductive rights, or is she doing it specifically to appear moderate and increase her chances at re-election? Honestly, with politicians these days, I go toward the more cynical route. I think that it's to appear moderate. But at the end of the day, they're going to always provide cover for the most extreme elements of their party. And that's exactly what Nancy Mace did today by voting to oust Kevin McCarthy for, I guess, not providing enough cover for MAGA Republicans and for not keeping his promises. Although that is such a vague thing to say, what exactly did McCarthy do that you're so unhappy with that you think another member of your party could handle better than McCarthy?
Yeah, he must have screwed over on a backroom deal, because otherwise it doesn't make sense what she's doing. And he must have promised her something and then lied, which is Kevin McCarthy 101. He lies to everyone. He lied to Biden. So, oh, we got a deal. Don't worry, we're not going to question shutting the government down. And then what's the first thing he did? He questioned shutting the government down. So he always lies. I mean, is this a surprise as politicians? But I want to give last word to one of our members. I love our members. They're so smart. And we do that. I like doing the show with them and putting their comments in. This is a YouTube member, Benjamin Gilbert Liff. He said, we should find a Republican and vote for them in exchange for a standalone child tax credit bill. See, that's two good ideas. See, that's why I'm starting Operation Hope, because you guys have as good ideas as anyone does, okay? So number one, yes, that's a great idea. Why don't we say, okay, we're willing to work with that Republican, but not that one, okay? If you want our votes. And so they'll chafe at that. They'll be like, oh, the Democrats aren't gonna pick our leader, but already you've got them backpedaling. And already if they want their guy, they're gonna have to make an extra concession to you, right? And the child tax credit bill is incredibly popular. Just as popular as paid family leave is, and it's super popular in places like West Virginia, in the South, etc. It's a great idea, Benjamin, okay? And so, will anyone in Washington have any idea halfway as good as one of our members on the Young Turks?
Probably not.
Probably not, but keep them coming, I love it. And by the way, if you want to be a member, you hit the join button below the video on YouTube or tyt.com/join. Look guys, no matter what anybody in Washington does, we're gonna fight forward and we're gonna fight together and we're gonna try to get to a better place.
When we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened on day 2 of Trump's financial fraud trial. Don't miss it, we'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Thanks to all the new members that just joined. We appreciate you guys. You are part of the Young Turks when you join in. Thanks for being part of our community. Anna's got more news for you.
Yes, so we have some updates on the Trump trial. This has to do with the civil suit against him for financial fraud. Let's get to the updates.
Nobody's supposed to know my net worth, but now everybody is and will, and I hope you're impressed.
Former President Donald Trump is not happy about the valuations for his real estate and assets, and this is on the second day of his civil trial in New York. The civil trial accuses him of engaging in financial fraud, and he's not the only one. His sons and his businesses have been accused of engaging in financial fraud as well, essentially inflating his assets to the tune of billions of dollars in an effort to secure all sorts of goodies, including loans and insurance. Now, the judge had ruled in a summary judgment just last week that he was in fact guilty of committing financial fraud. And now the real question is, what will the penalties be, right? He's also been accused of falsifying business records and insurance fraud. So with that context out of the way, let's get to some of the updates, including how Donald Trump really is his own worst enemy. If I were him, I would maybe stop attacking the judge because this is not a jury trial. He and his legal team have chosen to take the route of a non-jury trial, which means the judge will be making the decisions. But for some reason, he can't stop himself from going after the judge, and he's already paid some consequences for that. Now, he posted the following this morning, and gives you a sense of the kind of stuff he's saying that could get him in trouble. Now that it has been agreed in court that Mar-a-Lago is worth 50 to 100 times the value, the racist and incompetent Attorney General of New York State, Letitia Peekaboo James.
What the hell does that mean?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of theories as to what peekaboo means. I don't know, I don't care. It's just Trump assigning nicknames. That's just what he does. Ascribed to it, $18 million. We hope the judge will terminate his first ruling of fraud in that he was given false and ridiculous information by the Trump deranged lunatic A.G. James. Now, Trump's plea to Uygur is strange to say the least, especially since he made that demand following his attacks on the judge. He called the judge a Trump hater and rogue judge. I'm sure the judge probably didn't take kindly to that and is less likely to, consider your demands when you're attacking him. Trump even stated that Uygur should resign from the bench and be sanctioned by the courts for his abuse of power and his intentional and criminal interference with the presidential election of 2024. By the way, let me just go back to his Truth Social post. When he says that it has been adjudicated in court that his properties are worth 50 to 100 times the value that Letitia James claims they are, that has not been adjudicated in court at all.
Of course not.
I just want to be clear in case anyone's confused by that. You should be skeptical of most of his claims, but just wanted to clarify. Anyway, That aside, you'll also notice that Trump claimed that Mar-a-Lago is now worth something between $900 million to $1.8 billion. But in 2020, Trump and his company listed Mar-a-Lago at a worth of just $490 million on financial documents given to banks. So it appears that there's a little bit of a conflict there with the numbers.
So first of all, whenever they give it to banks, they're already overinflating it, right? Because that's gonna help them get bigger loans. Whenever they're giving it to the IRS, they make it a lower number so that they pay less taxes on it, right? So the 490 is already massively inflated. But now in that same clip that we showed you with Trump, he kept going. And yesterday he said 50 to 100. He repeated it again today, but then he gave a more specific number. He said about 1.5 billion. That's what Mar-a-Lago is worth. So it tripled in value, not according to me, but according to you. It tripled in value in the last 3 years. Okay, look, MAGA, you want to believe it? You can believe anything you like.
I mean, okay. Look, I don't believe it. I want to be clear, but honestly, with the way real estate has been increasing in value in recent years, maybe.
No,
I know.
No.
I know that that's not true in this particular case because it's such a massive increase.
It's not even 490, guys. None of it is true. He's a perpetual, ridiculous liar. Okay, so show me what its value is according to what you hand into the IRS.
But honestly, okay, so Letitia James claims that Mar-a-Lago is worth 18 million.
That also sounds ridiculous.
It does sound ridiculous.
Yeah, so we're fair. I get it. I don't know what its real value is. Okay, you know what, guys? I'll bother to call real estate friends that know real estate in Florida and get the real rough value for you guys. But it ain't anywhere within planets of 1.5 billion. If you haven't figured out that Donald Trump is a hilarious liar yet, man, there's nothing I could do to help you.
And by the way, don't take it from us. Take it from his now former personal attorney, former fix-it lawyer, Michael Cohen, who was, of course, deposed for this case. Cohen gave an example in which the former president might want to be higher on the Forbes list. So he'd suggest that, for example, his $6 billion net worth should actually be $8 billion. Alan Weisselberg and I were tasked with increasing those assets to accommodate that $8 billion number, Cohen said.
Okay, so I don't even believe that it was anywhere near 6 billion, okay, the company, let alone Trump's value. But look at how they're playing with the numbers. They're just adding $2 billion. Do you know how much $2 billion is? Do you have any idea how difficult it is to increase the value of your properties or any other assets you have by $2 billion?
I literally can't even conceptualize it, yeah.
And they just, you know what they go in? Weisselberg and Cohen go in and go, I don't know. All right, that was now worth $1.5 billion.
Yeah, Alan Weisselberg and Anthony Calamari. I don't know if Calamari was involved in any of that, but that guy exists.
They're just, I mean, Cohen was one of the guys who literally was fixing the numbers. He's turned in evidence, went to jail for it.
Yes.
And he's like, yeah, we would just make up numbers.
And he's not the only former Trump attorney who is providing some damning testimony against Trump. Former Trump accountant Donald Bender testified that at one point he discovered that Trump and his company were withholding certain documents that should have been given to him as he compiled Trump's financial statements. Bender added that they'd failed to turn over paper documents over a number of years.
He never follows the law. And so now MAGA's catching feelings because for the first time, an elite is being held accountable and it's one of theirs. And they're like, that's so unfair. All the elites should be held unaccountable. No, guys, it's fair to ask that all the elites be held accountable. It's not fair to say, even though Donald Trump has broken the law dozens, if not hundreds of times in his life, and brazenly so, and almost everyone who's ever worked with them says, yeah, we would break the law all the time, right? Or he would break the law all the time. For you guys to go, no, let him go. If you say let him go, you're saying, yeah, there should be a two-tier justice system. One for the rich and the elites, and they should get to cheat all they like and pretend what the value of their properties is higher so they could get even more money and cheat even more, but we shouldn't be allowed to do any of it.
When this type of fraud takes place, it actually does have an impact on you and your financial health, right? It has an impact on the kinds of fees you get charged by these banks. Like when people defraud the banks and the banks suffer financially as a result, what do you think they do? You think they just absorb it? No, they implement higher fees and higher interest rates on loans that you might need to take out. So just consider that. This is actually a pretty big deal, not only because it has an impact on you, but because should you ever even attempt to fudge the numbers a little bit to get a favorable loan or insurance, you think anyone's gonna rally in support of you and look out for you and say it's unfair that you're being prosecuted?
No way.
Of course not.
Yeah, so I gotta add a couple of things here. First of all, one of our members, again, great point, Gabby Marita wrote in, Mar-a-Lago is worth $1.8 billion, just like Trump is 6'3" and 215 pounds. Maggie, you still believe he's 215 pounds? That's what he self-reported the other day, 215. Come on, the guy's an obvious comical liar, comical, right? Okay, now here comes the real problem. The real problem is, and this is my guess, and this is speculation, okay? And I'm probably on the extreme end of it. I'm just being honest with you guys. I don't think he even has $250 million. And so I think that he's in a cold sweat panic, and that's why he's lashing out in every way. And by the way, the judge put a gag order on him now, which we're gonna get to in a second, okay? Because he doesn't even have $250 million, it's gonna bankrupt him. And then what's he gonna do? He's gonna have to sell off Mar-a-Lago, et cetera. He can't stomach it. So he's panicking. This panics him even more than the criminal trials does. So we'll find out. Maybe he's got it and he's like, oh, I have $8 billion, like Michael Cohen and Weisselberg wrote. $250 million is a chump change, here you go, boom. Well, we're gonna find out soon enough.
Well, let's reset for the gag order portion of this story because it is a doozy and this is really Trump's doing. I mean, he just is his own worst enemy. So, former President Donald Trump has now been issued a gag order by the very judge who is presiding over his civil suit pertaining to financial fraud. Now, the judge has been attacked by Donald Trump several times, and as a result, the judge, Arthur Engoron, said the following. Let's go to graphic 5. This morning, one of the defendants posted on social media, on a social media account, a disparaging, untrue, and personally identifying post about a member of my staff. Although I have since ordered the post deleted, and apparently it was also emailed out to millions of other recipients. Through email, by the way. Okay, so he continues to write, personal attacks on my members of my court staff are unacceptable, inappropriate, and I will not tolerate them under any circumstances. So I actually do not want to post. The post has been deleted, but keep in mind that he also blasted it out through email. I don't want to post it, guys. I just want to be clear about that. I just want to summarize what Trump did. So apparently Trump had posted an image of Chuck Schumer and one of the law clerks who works alongside the judge presiding over this case. And in it, he did provide some personal information, which you guys know what that's gonna lead to. It's gonna lead to harassment and all sorts of threats against her. And so that led to the gag order that the judge has now issued. And Gorin said that his statement should be considered a gag order forbidding any posts, emails, or public remarks about members of his staff. He added that serious sanctions would follow were he to be disobeyed, but did not elaborate. So that gag order applies to both parties in the case, but of course Trump is the one who will be affected by it the most because he is the one who just can't stop himself from attacking the very judge who is going to make the decisions about this civil suit. He's gonna make the decisions about the penalties that Donald Trump will face as a result of the financial fraud he has committed. And the judge has already ruled, this was a ruling last week in a summary judgment, that Trump is in fact guilty of committing financial fraud. Now, the real question is what will the penalties be? And they could be dire, to the tune of $250 million. That's what the prosecutors are asking for.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're gonna do with Trump when he violates the gag order, because at some point he's gonna violate a gag order, whether it's this specific one or another one, because and there's gonna be a lot more gag orders. Why? Because he's got verbal diarrhea, so he can't help himself. So the minute he sees someone that seems like in his mind against him, and so he sees the law clerk telling the judge something, the law clerk that's her job. She's supposed to give him research and et cetera, right? And he's like, okay, the judge is against me because he made one ruling against me. So she must be against me. So she must be evil. So I'm gonna tell everyone she's the worst person in the world and evil and against me. And then let's see what happens. I'm gonna tell everybody that General Milley, because he criticized me, should get the death penalty. And then let's see what happens, right? Oh, I mean, sometimes when I say things like that, pipe bombs appear out of nowhere. Huh, interesting. So are judges gonna stand for that? No, especially when it's not them, but it's their clerk. They're gonna wanna protect them 100 times more, right? Because the judges are so worried about being biased that if it's about them, maybe they withstand it. But if it's about somebody in their staff, no way, right? And then Trump cannot help, that's the nature of diarrhea. He can't help it. So he will go and spout more evil, horrible, potentially violent things about those same people. And then what are they gonna do? Are they gonna say contempt of court and lock him up? I don't know. Yeah. But I do know that this is gonna be a giant mess. And guys, one more thing that's very relevant to that and relevant to the overall 2024 election. So some Democrats have this fun dream where Donald Trump is then proven guilty in court, and MAGA wakes up and goes, "Oh my God, he was guilty? I didn't know that. Well, that's it. I'm not voting for him. I'm voting for Joe Biden." That's not gonna happen, okay? But there is one thing that can happen, which is Trump just deteriorates, right? He devolves and goes into a spin cycle of crazier and crazier and crazier things. That is very Trump. And that Trump cyclone can start at any time. And this is kind of how it starts. And I mean, God help us. I mean, I have no idea and I hope it never happens. But if he gets someone seriously hurt, right, through one of his vigilante thugs that does the violence on his behalf, I don't know, is there any decency left in the Republican Party? Will they then go like, this guy's getting people killed or hurt? We've got it, this is too much. And even that, I'm probably being way too hopeful, probably not.
Do you remember when Lindsey Graham was confronted at the airport following his floor speech on January 6th? This is after the riots, after they came back. Lindsey Graham was terrified over what happened and gave a quick, fiery speech condemning Trump's involvement in that, in inciting the rioters. But he switched gears real quick after he was confronted at the airport. I bring that up specifically because all of these wannabe strongmen in the Republican Party who love to pretend as though they had national security in mind, that they were the strongmen who were gonna protect the country, they're the very ones who folded immediately as soon as they got confronted by Republican voters who happen to be loyalists to Donald Trump. They're scared little boys. They're not gonna speak up. Yeah. They're either incredibly selfish, they're concerned about their political careers, right? I mean, what does it say that it took a Republican woman, Liz Cheney, to stand up to Donald Trump? And she did lose her career, her political career as a result of that. Now, I'm sure she's gonna be real fine. Like she's gonna be lobbying, doing whatever she's doing, she's gonna be okay. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think the incentive structure in Congress specifically attracts the most craven, self-interested, narcissistic losers imaginable who see it as an opportunity to enrich themselves, not become public servants. And that's the real problem.
Yeah, so I wrote about that in my book, Justice is Coming, where it creates a vicious cycle because even in up to recent elections, 97% of the time, the person with more money wins in the House, okay? It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, nothing matters other than the money, right? So in good cycles where just Democrats kick ass, it's down to 87%. But what happens basically is, even the good people eventually get weeded out, right? And even if they ran a good, honest, wonderful campaign, et cetera, they're gonna lose to the guy with more money 97, 95% of the time, et cetera, right? So that system churns out nothing but craven people who only care about power and money. So that's why the Republicans are all jello, they're all cowards. I mean, why doesn't DeSantis stand up and go, God damn it, enough, Trump. You lost the election, move on, right? Jesus, and stop breaking the goddamn law and stop threatening people like a two-bit thug. down here in Florida, we know how to deal with thugs like you. He would never do that because, oh, what's MAGA gonna say about me? Are you a man or aren't you? Are you strong or aren't you?
Yeah.
And the answer for most politicians, and definitely the Republicans, is no, they are not strong. So Trump would have to do something beyond extreme that it's hard to imagine for him to lose any of these weak Republican politicians. But if he keeps going this way, whether it has an effect or not, some people are gonna get hurt. He has crazed followers and he keeps egging them on until they do some sort of violence. So buckle up and brace for impact.
All right, Trump's former chief of staff when we return.
Antifa!
TYT, Cenk, Anna with you, but also Andrew Layden, Talon Wood, Kat, which is fun, and Polgora, the Sorcerer's Dragon. All right, I got that. So all these wonderful folks just joined Young Turks by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube, and they all just became Young Turks themselves, and that's how we do the show with you guys. And of course, you could always join at tyt.com/join. Casper.
Well, we've got some confirmation in regard to Trump and his behavior in the White House, and it's coming from his former chief of staff, John Kelly. Let's get to the story.
Kelly describes Trump as, quote, a person that thinks those who defend their country in uniform or are shot down or seriously wounded in combat or spend years being tortured as POWs are all, quote, suckers because, quote, there is nothing in it for them.
Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, has confirmed what we already knew in regard to his former boss, Donald Trump, and what he had to say about our veterans and fallen soldiers. He, for whatever reason, decided to confirm all of this to Jake Tapper in an interview. We've got a lot of details to get to, but first, let's watch some more of that video.
Kelly sets the record straight with on-the-record confirmation of a number of damning details about Donald Trump from background sources, including from a 2020 Atlantic story reported with unnamed sources by editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg, including the stunning detail that Trump turned to Kelly on Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery in 2017 and asked, I don't get it. What was in it for them? A person that did not want to be seen in the presence of military amputees because, quote, it doesn't look good for me. A person that demonstrated open contempt for a Gold Star family, for all Gold Star families on TV during the 2016 campaign.
So I'm just gonna right off the bat share what I think about this story. So these stories keep getting reported on in the corporate press, and I think they're important stories for people who actually want to know the truth, for people who want confirmation of what's been written in books about Trump, what's been reported about Trump previously. It's good to get this confirmation. So I think this is an excellent report. There's nothing wrong with it. However, if anyone is under the assumption that this type of reporting is going to change the minds of Trump loyalists, I think you would be mistaken. Because while some of this stuff was said behind the scenes, and now his former chief of staff, John Kelly, is confirming that he did in fact say these things behind the scenes, a lot of the negative, insulting things he had to say about prisoners of war and our troops were said publicly. Attacking the Gold Star family was part of his campaign platform in 2016.
Yeah, and of course he legendarily said about John McCain, I prefer people who weren't shot down.
Right.
Okay. And the guys in the Republican, let's be honest, Republican voters who pretended to be in favor of John McCain, pretended to be in favor of the military and veterans. And I remember all your bumper stickers, support our troops. Remember the yellow ribbons, right? You all went, yeah, he got shot down like a sucker. Who cares about him? Yay, Trump. Okay. So look, Anna, I'm split on it because on the one hand, I hear what you're saying and you're not gonna move MAGA. And in fact, I'll give you evidence of that. It's anecdotal, but my Twitter replies are these days almost nothing but MAGA, right? Mm-hmm. And so I posted about this and I was curious, is there anything that's too low Or are you guys cool with it, right? The military and all of our veterans suck, and there's losers, there's no, Trump's too smart to get hurt like those idiots, etc., right? And so what was there? I'm curious what their response is. Of course, overwhelming number one responses, we don't believe it, la 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 la, right? Okay, so
let me, go ahead, let me jump in real quick. Bear with me. So over the weekend, I watched that 2016 movie, Hell or High Water. I don't know if you've watched that.
I think so, yeah.
So it takes place in a Texas town that has been absolutely decimated by the 2008 economic collapse.
With Chris Pine in it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, I watched it, yeah.
He can get it. Let me just
okay,
say.
well, that's a different thing. Keep going.
A little scruffy Chris Pine action. So why did you have to do that? Now I'm distracted. Okay, anyway, no. But the movie, this is not a spoiler. It's just a little detail in the movie that you might even miss because it's so quick. In one of the opening scenes, there is on a wall spray painted the message, 3 tours to Iraq, but no bailout for us.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
I thought that was such a powerful message, and it really tapped into the rage that Americans felt following the 2000 economic collapse, but more importantly, the response by the Obama administration to it, right? And so there are so many of our veterans out there who are suffering with PTSD, suffering real life consequences as a result of them serving our country, okay? And what I'm having a difficult time understanding is how it is considered fair to support a man who has said some of the most horrible things about our veterans, about our fallen soldiers, obviously people who also served the country. How is it okay to support a leader who is okay with thinking of our troops that way, our veterans that way? I mean, how is it any better than the abandonment and the neglect that Americans felt following the 2008 economic collapse? The anger that veterans felt following the 2008 economic collapse. Like that disconnect is really fascinating to me.
So look, I'm gonna give one caveat in favor of MAGA in a second, but let me build on everything that Anna's saying. So, first of all, he had a chance to go to Vietnam. So all this is verified because when he had a chance to actually be in the military, and in fact, it wasn't even optional. What did he do? He got his dad to find a doctor to write a letter saying that he has bone spurs. And when a reporter asked him, which foot did you have bone spurs in? He said, I don't know, both, maybe. Okay, so that's not an exact quote. You can look up the quote yourself, okay? But bottom line is he had no idea because he made it up. He believes that you're a sucker or a loser if you serve the United States military. He's believed it all his life. Now, if you're cool with that, that's fine. I know you're gonna say everyone who says anything about Donald Trump, including 80% of the people who work with him. This is his former chief of staff who was super excited to go work for Donald Trump, who's a massive right-winger like you guys if you're MAGA, right?
He provided cover for Donald Trump and defended him over and over again as he was serving as chief of staff.
And it has happened to almost every chief of staff and to almost everyone who works with Donald Trump. But you think, no, they're all liars. It was all part of a giant trap. They all pretend, guy after guy after guy has a whole life record of being a massive right-winger. But it was all a trap of the deep state because one day, 40 years later, they knew Trump would rise and they would get him into the thing and then they would all lie about Trump. And Trump, the pathological liar, is the one guy you trust, right? So guys, even you know, 215 pounds, that's what he self-reported his weight at. I mean, you know that's a lie. And then they say, oh no, he's just trolling, he's just trolling. No, he's a narcissist, he can't stop lying. So now the caveat, look, we know better than any show on planet Earth that part of what drives MAGA crazy is that the establishment sucks. We agree the establishment sucks. And Donald Trump appears to be anti-establishment. And that's why you guys like him, right? But does that excuse every other thing that he does? Is there no other anti-establishment right-winger in the country who doesn't hate our troops, who doesn't lie 24/7, who doesn't break dozens of laws? Come on, do better, Jesus Christ. Pick someone we hate, pick someone we disagree with completely. But a guy who's this much of a monster. And you know when he said these things to John Kelly? When John Kelly was standing over the grave of his son who had lost his life serving the country.
And he,
I mean, what, guys, hold on, Ed. What kind of a monster does that? A sociopath who has no empathy for any other human being. You can't find one right-winger who's anti-establishment, hates the establishment as much as Donald Trump and you guys do, that isn't this much of a monster. So, all right, enjoy. Now, so Anna, I agree with you. It's not gonna move people. On the other hand, his voters in the Republican primary. On the other hand, I hope to God it reaches a couple of independents and that the independents haven't lost their mind. And as much as Joe Biden is asleep at the wheel and he's all the problems that Joe Biden has, or whoever the Democratic nominee is, that they go, okay, God damn it, the Republicans did it to us again. Why do you keep choosing this guy? We can't vote for you if you keep choosing this monster, okay? Choose someone else and then you've got a shot at winning our vote.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I just, again, don't think that this is the type of issue that for whatever reason is persuasive enough to move the Trump loyalists from supporting him. I want to add just a few more things. So Kelly agrees to do this interview with Jake Tapper. He confirms all of those previous statements that Trump reportedly said about fallen soldiers and veterans. I want to give you a little more of what Kelly had to say. Let's start with graphic 5 here. In regard to Trump, Kelly said that he is a person who is not truthful regarding his position on the protection of unborn life, on women, on minorities, on evangelical Christians, on Jews, on working men and women. A person that has no idea what America stands for and has no idea what America is all about. A person who cavalierly suggests that a selfless warrior who has served his country for 40 years in peacetime and war should lose his life for treason in expectation that someone will take action. And what he's referring to there is Trump's statements in regard to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in his administration. That was General Mark Milley, an individual that Trump himself had appointed. Apparently Trump is very upset that Mark Milley de-escalated a potential hot war with China because China had bad information about how the US was planning a mission against China. And so basically, Milley had spoken to other members of the Trump administration before reaching out to his counterpart in China to de-escalate the situation. But it is an unprecedented situation because typically you would take your orders from Trump, and Trump was furious that Milley didn't do that. Yeah. But understand that Trump's rhetoric on the public stage is what was escalating the United States to a potential hot war with China in the first place.
Look, I said at the time, because we're always honest and fair. I said, look, it makes me uncomfortable that Milley's having to go to the Speaker of the House, who was Nancy Pelosi at the time, and China and other people, and saying, don't worry, we're not going to start World War III in the very last days of the Trump administration, right? So no, civilian control is very important, okay? Having said that, the reason he had to do that is because the president is a raving lunatic, and the Chinese were worried that World War III was imminent. So now MAGA says they don't want World War III, and that's why they like Trump. But then you're against Milley, who helped to prevent World War III. Try to make sense, but again, MAGA's nearly hopeless. Independents, please do not go anywhere near this guy's direction. This guy just does not believe in our system of government. I mean, calling for the death of American generals because they dared to disagree with you, it's disgusting, it's sick. And that's why John Kelly's finally going on the record now. And look, John, you saw from that quote, he's massively pro-life. He's worried that Trump's not pro-life enough. And he held his fire for all this time. And finally he's like, oh, you're calling for executions and vigilante violence. This is madness, you have to stop. And at least it's some voices in the Republican Party saying you have to stop. He's never gonna stop until Republican voters or general election voters thoroughly reject him and say, we don't want this monster as our leader.
When we come back for the second hour of the show, we'll talk about how conservatives are planning to work with the Supreme Court to decimate public education as we know it. That story and more coming up, don't miss it.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.